The great training hall of the Varkesh War Academy was a place built to crush the weak and honor only the strong, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows and walls scarred by centuries of brutal combat. Heavy gravity pressed down on every body inside, making even breathing a test of strength. Around the floating platform stood cadets from many powerful alien races, each one shaped by war, some tall and scaled, some wide and armored, others sharp and fast, all confident that they belonged there. Among them stood one figure who did not fit at all, a single human woman. She was smaller than everyone else, softer in shape, wearing plain armor that looked old compared to the shining battlesuits around her. Her name tag read Lieutenant Mara Vega of the Terran Union. Instructor Kaiser the Unbroken, a legendary warrior feared across the galaxy, stared at her with open disbelief. He had survived wars that erased entire species, and he could not understand why such a fragile being was allowed to stand in this hall. His deep voice echoed as he demanded to know who allowed a human to enter a place meant for true warriors. Laughter spread through the room as alien cadets mocked her size and silence, certain she would break under the gravity or shame alone. Mara did not lower her eyes or step back. She stood straight, calm, as if the weight meant nothing to her. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady and clear, saying she was there because humanity had paid the blood price to stand among the stars. That only made the mockery worse, because many believed humans had nearly vanished after their first galactic war and were no longer worth notice. Kaiser moved closer, towering over her, his shadow covering her completely as he spoke of how humans had failed and how this academy trained leaders of destruction, not weak survivors. Without fear or anger, Mara reached behind her back and slowly brought forward her weapon. The sound of laughter died instantly. The blade she revealed was not glowing or powered by energy, but a long, dark piece of metal that looked ancient and heavy, marked by deep scars and strange symbols carved into its surface. Kaiser leaned closer, his battle instinct screaming, because he recognized those marks. They were not decorations or honors given by others. They were victory carvings made by warriors who had survived planetary sieges and galaxy-wide wars. He saw names and patterns tied to conflicts he himself had fought in battles, where billions had died and only the strongest had walked away. Humans were never meant to survive those wars, yet this blade carried proof that they had not only survived but fought at the center of them. The instructor felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest as Mara quietly explained that the blade had passed through her family for generations, carried by her mother, her grandfather, and those before them, each adding a mark through blood and loss. The hall remained silent, every alien suddenly aware that the small human carried the weight of history heavier than the gravity itself. Before Kaiser could speak again, the academy shook violently, and red lights flooded the hall as alarms screamed. Screens lit up showing a nightmare tearing through space. The Zoxkith Devourers, a living fleet known for ending civilizations, were breaking into the system. Panic spread among cadets who had never faced a real extinction-level threat, and instructors rushed to issue orders. Kaiser tried to command evacuation and defenses, but the screens flashed warnings that the shields were already failing. The first impact struck orbit, and the academy trembled like it might tear apart. While others froze or shouted, Mara moved with sudden purpose, securing her armor and gripping the blade as if it were an extension of her body. Kaiser tried to stop her, telling her she had no authority to act, but she looked back with a calm, fierce focus and said, "Humans do not wait when lives are at stake." She launched herself toward the breach as the hull tore open and devourer creatures poured inside, their forms twisted and deadly. Where trained cadets broke formation in fear, the human ran forward under crushing gravity, using it to fuel her movement. She struck fast and hard, cutting down enemies that were supposed to be unstoppable. taking wounds that would kill others and continuing anyway. Kaiser watched in shock as she fought with a grim, almost peaceful expression, realizing that what he had mistaken for weakness was endurance shaped by generations of survival. As more devourers flooded in, human drop pods smashed into the hall, releasing Terran soldiers who fought with desperate creativity, turning debris into weapons and refusing to fall even when injured beyond reason. The Academy became a battlefield, and beside humans who should have been dead many times over, Kaiser joined the fight, beginning to understand the lesson standing before him. Part 1 ends with the realization that the human did not come to prove she belonged. She came because humanity always shows up when the galaxy is about to burn, carrying history, sacrifice, and an unbreakable will forward into the darkness. The alarms in the Varkesh War Academy blared relentlessly, filling every corner with a sense of imminent doom as red lights flashed across the vast hall. The screens lining the walls activated, revealing a terrifying sight. The Zogskith Devourers, a living fleet of warships made of bone and dark energy, tearing through space with ruthless precision. The Devourers were legendary for erasing civilizations, and now they were heading straight for the Academy. Panic spread quickly among the cadets. Many had never faced a real threat, let alone one capable of ending entire species. The instructors barked orders, but their voices barely cut through the chaos. Kaiser the Unbroken, seasoned and feared across multiple galaxies, tried to maintain order, commanding defenses to activate and evacuation routes to open. But the warning screens flashed over and over. The defense grid had failed. Explosions shook the outer hull as the first Devourer ship struck, tearing through metal and energy shields, sending chunks of the Academy tumbling into the gravity wells. While many froze in fear or scrambled to save themselves, Mara Vega, the human lieutenant, moved with purpose, her mind focused and her body honed by instinct and experience. She secured her combat rig, strapping it tightly to her body, and pulled her ancient blade from its sheath, the same one etched with the marks of generations of human victories. She ignored the shouts from Kaiser telling her she was unauthorized to act, moving toward the breach with determination. As the Devourers poured through the gaps in the outer walls, their clawed and winged forms spilling into the Academy like a river of living death, Mara leapt into action. Gravity worked against her, pressing her down, but she used it to propel herself, striking with speed and precision that belied her small frame. She cut down one Devourer after another, each strike fueled by rage, courage, and the weight of humanity's history. When one creature tried to crush her, she twisted, pierced its eye, and turned its attack against it, leaving a trail of shattered armor and alien blood. Kaiser watched in awe as she fought with a calm intensity, even smiling through the pain and chaos, a look he had never seen on a battlefield before. Human drop pods began to slam into the hall, opening like steel flowers to release soldiers who were not trained like the Academy cadets but hardened by survival, battlefields, and raw determination. They fought differently from the alien cadets, using debris as shields, making traps on the fly, improvising when weapons failed, and never stopping even when injured. The humans adapted instantly, turning disadvantage into strategy and fear into aggression. Kaiser joined the fight, realizing that these humans were unlike any other soldiers he had trained or faced. They fought not with perfection, but with sheer will and unrelenting persistence. Mara advanced toward the command tower amid the chaos, her blade cutting a path through enemies that should have overwhelmed her. She moved with speed and grace, surviving attacks that would have killed the largest warriors in the hall. Outside the Academy, the humans' fleets arrived, small and seemingly insignificant, but armed and ready to engage. Ships rammed the Devourer vessels, detonating cores, tearing through hulls, and sacrificing themselves to create paths for others to follow. Every maneuver was precise, though it seemed reckless to outsiders. because humanity had learned over centuries that survival required ingenuity as much as strength. The Devourer flagship descended toward the Academy, its presence radiating death and command. Mara, ignoring the storms of fire and alien screams, prepared to board the flagship alone, knowing that the fate of not only the Academy but the surrounding systems depended on stopping the fleet at its heart. Throughout the fighting, Khazar observed humans displaying a combination of courage, intelligence, and brutal efficiency that defied every expectation he had of a weaker species. They adapted in ways that no algorithm, alien instinct, or centuries of training could predict, making the impossible possible. Mara's leadership was silent but undeniable. Her example inspired cadets and soldiers alike to fight beyond their fear, to take risks others would not consider, and to keep advancing even when hope seemed lost. By the time she reached the flagship, the Devourers had begun to falter under the relentless human assault, their formations breaking as smaller human ships, Marines, and Academy defenders pushed forward with coordinated yet chaotic tactics. Mara's determination was mirrored in every human she had trained with and every soldier she had inspired. The battle had transformed from a desperate defense into a counterattack fueled by ingenuity, courage, and unbreakable will. Khazar realized that humans did not just fight, they endured, adapted, and turned every disadvantage into a tool for survival. Even when injured, outnumbered, or facing overwhelming firepower, they continued to push forward with relentless precision and emotion. Mara reached the boarding point for the flagship, ready to take the final steps that no other soldier could. She carried not just her blade but the weight of generations, and her actions would decide the fate of the Devourer fleet. Her courage inspired the entire human contingent and forced even the Academy's alien warriors to see that this small species could achieve what giants could not. Part 2 ends with humanity standing firm in the face of overwhelming odds, demonstrating that their strength lies not in size, armor, or technology alone, but in their unyielding will, sharp minds, and the ability to fight through fear and despair to meet the impossible head-on. The human's action turns the tide, setting the stage for Mara to confront the heart of the Devourer fleet, proving that even in the darkest moments, humanity does not just survive, they advance. The interior of the Devourer flagship was alive in a way that made every step Mara Vega took feel dangerous and unnatural. The walls pulsed as though the ship itself were breathing, and the floors vibrated underfoot, screaming with a sound that was almost alive. The air smelled of decay and fire, and every corner seemed to watch her, shifting as though it had a mind of its own. Mara moved cautiously but with purpose, her armor cracked and scorched from previous battles, her blade still in hand and humming faintly with the weight of history and generations of human struggle. Inside her mind, a voice spoke a presence that was the Devourer Overmind, the intelligence controlling the fleet. Its words were not spoken aloud, yet they resonated with authority and malice. You are small. You will be consumed. Mara did not falter. She laughed, the sound sharp and fearless, carrying centuries of human defiance. She reminded the Overmind that her species had faced extinction before, had buried gods, and had survived wars that had destroyed civilizations older than stars. She advanced deeper, knowing that the heart of the fleet, the Overmind's core, was the key to stopping the invasion. The flagship struck her with overwhelming force multiple times, breaking armor and shattering bones, yet she rose each time. Every wound she sustained seemed to fuel her, not weaken her, because her purpose was larger than herself. She moved forward, cutting down living metal and bone creatures that tried to block her path, her blade carving through them as if it carried the memory of all human victories. Finally, she reached the core chamber, where the Overmind pulsed like a monstrous heart, alive and aware of every attack. The floor under her feet vibrated with power, and the walls glimmered with alien runes that threatened to drive intruders mad. Mara planted her blade into the center of the core, not stabbing in a random attack, but etching human runes into the alien flesh of the ship itself. The marks burned with a strange energy, carrying the history of every human sacrifice and battle, and the Overmind screamed, not with words, but with a psychic force that rattled the hull. Outside the flagship, human fleets and the defenders of the Academy pressed the assault. They had learned to anticipate the Devourer's movements, coordinating attacks that seemed chaotic but were lethal in execution. Small human ships rammed enemy vessels, detonating cores and creating holes for others to strike. Every maneuver displayed ingenuity and courage that no other species could match, turning desperation into strategy. Mara armed a final charge within the core, knowing that her action would destroy the flagship and likely cost her life. Her last message was broadcast across every channel of the galaxy. She announced herself as Lieutenant Mara Vega and declared that humanity had been here, a message of survival and defiance. The resulting explosion tore the flagship apart, killing the Overmind and sending shockwaves through the remaining Devourer fleet. Ships collapsed and fell silent, leaving the surviving human and allied forces victorious, though the cost had been immense. Days later, the galaxy gathered to assess the aftermath. Khazar and the other instructors watched in silence as Mara's blade was placed on a pedestal. Now etched with the final mark, the last Devourer war, the Academy and the survivors realized the lesson humans had shown. Strength was not measured by size, armor, or technological might alone, but by willpower, courage, and the determination to fight against impossible odds. Khazar bowed before the pedestal, acknowledging humanity's enduring spirit. He spoke to the assembly, telling them that when the galaxy doubts humanity, they must remember this moment, this victory, and the resilience that allowed humans to survive and advance when all seemed lost. Mara's sacrifice, her courage, and her refusal to yield had left a mark not just on the Devourer fleet, but on the memory of every species present. Humanity had demonstrated that they do not fight only to win, but to ensure that others may live, turning their small numbers and fragile frames into the greatest strength imaginable. Even in a galaxy filled with giants, monsters, and impossible threats, humans proved that resilience, intelligence, and unyielding will could overcome any enemy. The story concluded with the knowledge that humanity would continue to advance, scarred but unbroken, carrying with them the legacy of those who fought, bled, and sacrificed for survival, ensuring that no threat, no matter how immense, could erase their presence or their courage. The galaxy had learned that humans, underestimated and mocked, were a force unlike any other, small in size, perhaps, but limitless in heart, will, and determination to endure, leaving behind a legacy that would inspire generations and shape the future of all civilizations across the stars.